Hey everybody, welcome to the show. Today we have Angela Kulikov on. Angela, welcome.
Thanks for having me.
So we've been kind of chatting back and forth trying to set this up for a while, and I'm excited to talk with you about tennis. And you were just telling me that you're kind of a strategy dork, which made me even more excited about this episode. But before we dive into tennis, I wanted to check in and see how the golf game is going since Memorial Day weekend.
It's been going good. My boyfriend actually lives on a golf course. So right outside my window is hole number 17 of Los Robles golf course. So
Okay.
it's kind of the accessibility to the driving range and the abundance of free time I have right now doing the PT for my ankle. So I played my first round over at
Uh-huh.
Westlake. I think it's probably one of the easiest courses in America, but it was the first time you could legitimately say I played the round and didn't sort of,
Yeah.
take a practice ball and hit it four holes over and, just drive the
Yeah.
cart around. So it's coming along. I'm getting better. I'm happy with it.
So is that your first time to ever play golf, or had you played previously?
That would be my first. So my first round, I guess, was my first date with my boyfriend Alex. It was at the same
Yeah.
golf course. I'd never played before. I'd been to Drive Shack in Orlando once or
Wow.
twice,
Okay.
as we all do after the campus, but I hadn't really swung clubs or legitimately played around. So that was
Hmm.
a joke. I mean, I made contact 5 or 6 times there. Didn't touch it again. And then for Christmas, he gifted me a set of clubs. And I, took the hint, obviously. So I was like, all
Yeah.
right, I'll come around. And, he plays with the other guys on his team pretty frequently. And I'll sort of just ride along in the cart. And when the ankle injury happened, it was a little bit of time before I was really able to stand and walk around. But, I need some kind of athletic outlet. And I finally was like, all right,
Yeah.
I'm cleared to golf. I can stand in one spot and sort of rotate now. I've got these clubs waiting for me. You know what? I'm gonna dive in. Why not? And that
Yeah.
ended up coinciding with that Memorial Day weekend, and I think just the boredom and the stir craziness from no tennis all just came
Yeah.
through in this 3-day weekend. But it paid off, and I feel like it'll be a fun hobby just to carry on for the rest of my life, even post tennis. So I'm into it.
Yeah, it definitely is. Yeah, the Instagram video, I mean, it looked like for somebody who's never really played much, I mean, you're athletic, obviously, anyway, so you can figure sports out, but you got pretty good in the course of 3 days. Like your swing looked, I played some golf growing up, so I can like kind of see and know what I'm talking about, and it looked pretty good. I was impressed.
I appreciate. No, I mean, I've had Alex is pretty good, so there was some coaching from him. There was a ridiculous amount of film, we'll call it. There was just me on
Oh
YouTube and
yeah,
Instagram, like watching and it's
that
like funny the
helps.
way people do it. They've got these raps now and just these like really great ways of getting the little tips and tricks just to get you going. But I don't know.
Hmm.
That was 100% just my crazy hypomania that usually goes to tennis, finding a new outlet.
Yeah.
That's what I owe that to.
So let's go back to your story. We can keep it to maybe like 1 or 2 minutes, but tell for people who don't know you, tell them your kind of story, how you got started in tennis, and then we'll go from there.
Yeah, I mean, tennis was an accident. My parents are both immigrants. I'm half Filipino, half Russian. Neither of them were athletes, didn't really play sports. But I came out and was very active and interested in playing with any equipment or anytime someone had a ball around me, I was throwing and kicking and whatever around with it. So I grew up in Burbank and Burbank Tennis Center happened to have $5 lessons on the weekends. So
You
I
can't find
started off
those
there.
anymore.
Exactly. My parents did not have any idea at the time how expensive tennis really was either. So,
Yeah.
whoops on their part. But I was lucky enough that the USTA was sort of doing their next search for the next generation of guinea pigs, I suppose. So I was super young. I was about 7.5, maybe 8, I think, for that first talent ID camp. And they
Hmm.
liked me. So I spent the next 10 years over at the training center in Carson. I like I said, my parents wouldn't have been able to afford a sport as pricey as tennis. So without their help, there's definitely no prospect for me. A few injuries around 15, 16 sort of knocked me off of that, elite, we got to get you at Wimbledon by 17 trajectory,
Yeah.
but probably was for the better in hindsight because it solidified college for me. I spent 5 years at USC from that, five because of COVID, really got to address and kind of regather that momentum and steam I'd lost because I was brought up on that one track. I'm going to be a singles pro, would never have taken double seriously. And, it was tough because I went from next big thing ish to kind of irrelevant. Like my first 2 years in college, I wasn't ranked. I played bottom of the lineup. And there was a big adjustment period for me, just mentality wise, of accepting, yeah, you're sort of not this prodigy anymore. You're kind of back to the middle line. So a lot of development for me happened there. COVID especially gave me truly a year to go back to the beginning and address some things I otherwise wouldn't have gotten to, just because when you're competing every single week, you can't really address grips. You can't really make huge technical changes. In that 8 months where tennis stopped, I actually did have a chance to go back to the drawing board. So it's sort of a combination of bad luck and good luck that got me to where I am now. So I'm, in a weird way, I'm grateful for the unlucky things that fell in my tennis path.
Hmm. What so let's go back to say like 18, 19 years old. You've
Mhm.
had the injury, you're starting college, or maybe you're a year in. What advice would you give yourself at that time, knowing what you know now?
I mean, it would have been to just come to that acceptance of where I was sooner. I
Mm,
think when you're brought up in that, you're one of the top juniors and you're constantly comparing yourself to your peers. And, my group would have been Kayla Day, Cece Bellis, Claire Liu. Um, those actually, they were the younger ones. Funny enough, I'm a 98, they're the 99s. And it's when you're growing up,
mhm,
I remember that being this like benchmark. You wanted to be the best at your year. But it just took me too long to accept that I wasn't that anymore. That was just the truth. It was me trying to protect this image or ego, I guess I suppose I held about what I was and what I was supposed to be. And it took maybe my freshman year getting just slapped in the face quite a bit to go, oh, maybe you're not. And then my sophomore year to sort of be okay with that. Like it felt like I was grasping at straws to protect this identity that didn't even exist. And when I finally just settled in and went, all right, yeah, you're not that good. Like you're not a professional prospect anymore. That was honestly where there was a huge shift and a huge jump, honestly, in my level that allowed me to become a professional prospect again.
mm, interesting. So once you like took that pressure away, your game
Hmm.
improved?
Pretty much, it sounds funny, but once I kind of said, yeah, you suck, let's do something about it, instead of no, I'm still good, I'm still good, watch, watch, watch. And we watched. But yeah, it was when I just said, you know what, this is where you are, this is where you were, this is where you are. It kind of freed me up to just build without those unnecessary strings pulling me to prove my value or my worth to
Hmm.
anyone or myself.
So do you think you were able to like work harder after that or work smarter after that? What actually allowed you to improve? Or do you think it was just totally mental and you didn't change anything with your kind of day-to-day improvement?
I think college days, working hard was never an issue. I was always kind of your works too hard type, doesn't work smart, I think,
Okay.
early on. So I think a lot of it was more just that mental freedom. We know how much of a role confidence plays in matches. I think it gets applied to the way we train as well. When I'm busy trying to uphold this idea that no, I'm still this prospect, I'm going to train differently than no, okay, I literally don't know how to hit a two-handed backhand. Like actually, I can't make five two-handed backhands in a row. We're going to hand feed today. Like it kind of permeated down even to those little training decisions. And yeah, I wouldn't say I started training smart until post post college and another injury that ended my singles career before it began. But yeah, a lot of it was mental. It was just that freedom to go back to the beginning instead of trying to protect something I no longer was.
Mhm. And then in one of your other Instagram reels, you kind of go through your story and talk about football. Then after college, you spend 3 years kind of grinding, and it looked like it was pretty difficult and emotional, as the lower level of the tour can be.
Mhm.
Talk a little bit about that time between, say, what was it, U.S. Open 2022? Is that right, or 2023?
That'd be my first. 22 would be my first.
22, and then the time between the end of college and then that US Open.
From a football standpoint or just an overall
Oh, no, 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 tennis. We'll
tennis?
get to football later.
Yeah. I mean that so like I said, COVID also saved my career because again, I was improving. There was a big jump, like I said, my junior year, especially in doubles, where I started realizing, oh, maybe in this area I still have a shot.
Mhm,
And COVID let me truly go back to the drawing board. That was when I met one of my coaches, Dave Schwartz, who's the head coach over at Claremont McKenna. And he was super integral to that. You know, we were spending so his season actually at CMS got canceled because COVID shut it down. So he
mhm,
was free, and I was a kind of a fun project, I feel like, for him. So we were spending hours every single day. Just, we reworked my forehand grip. We were discussing so many tactical things because he is very much a tactician himself, and just readdressing and fine tuning every little detail. And the improvement rate at one point there started becoming absurd. I mean, I would practice a lot with some of the men on the men's team at CMS, and it's Division 3, but obviously they're men, so the level's pretty high. But it kind of became this like measuring stick for me as I would play
mm,
against them, and we started seeing over the course of like a week. I mean, I don't know UTR well enough, but my UTR would be increasing every single week. And we were really seeing these jumps happen in every part, my fitness, my overall athleticism, adding miles per hour to the serve, the grip coming through on the forehand, adding a two-handed backhand.
mm,
So I started just making these really huge jumps to where honestly the goal was singles. The goal was, wow, maybe she can be one of those late bloomers that makes a push on the tour post college, and that ended up biting me in the butt because that amount of training, and we're talking like again like the golf thing we mentioned, it was that for tennis
yeah,
7 months. So we were like 6-7 hours a day between the court and the gym, and me
wow.
doing some dumb extra stuff even at home. So I messed up my back pretty badly with that, and went back to USC for my 5th year and couldn't really play because of it. Doctors could
Was
not
that
figure
just
out.
overtraining, just like overuse injury?
That's probably what it was. It was just an
Okay.
insane amount of rotation and torque I was putting on myself. So doctors couldn't figure it out, but I was able to do two. I could flex, I could extend, and I could move. I just could not rotate. So I could
Mm,
serve an open volley pretty much. was
yeah.
what came of that. And that was how I played doubles, honestly, anyway. So the plan was to shoot me off for doubles in the meantime while we tried to rehab the back. And the joke was always, what happens if your doubles career takes off too quickly and your ranking gets too high? And we'd all laugh about what a great problem that would be. And then that sort of happened. And I got faced with that decision of, do you want to play the Australian, or do you want to go to Tunisia next year? And it really wasn't that hard a decision, honestly.
Really?
I
Huh.
mean, it not enough to keep me up at night. Every so often, I have I have a good day hitting groundies, and I'll think, huh, maybe
Maybe
that
I
could have
could
been
have.
fun. But how much I've been exposed now to the top level, I'm not a ball striker like that, so it probably was for the best.
Yeah. Um, so I do want to get to some tennis strategy. We mentioned football. How does you've got so many hobbies, it seems like, how does football play into all of this?
Football was just football is kind of the life and the long, not long lost, I guess. It was never really an option for me. But I told you, I wanted to play with any ball I could growing up, and at school the boys played football early on, so I fell in
Hmm.
love with it, playing two-hand touch on the school blacktop. You know, tennis, when it started picking up, didn't really, there weren't as many flag football opportunities as there are now. And my tennis obviously
Hmm.
took precedence, so I didn't really get to play any other sports growing up. I went to USC, obviously a big football school, so there was a bit of that around me that piqued my interest again. And then the injuries around my mid teenage years, I needed something to fill my time, and nobody had bought me golf clubs yet. So I started coaching my younger brother and sort of becoming a part of his journey. And then, I wouldn't say I lost my passion for it. It was more just tennis, and that transition to the pro tour was so consuming for me that I just didn't really have the time or energy, it felt like, to follow the NFL as closely as I did. But I'd say, Seahawks were my team. I kept tabs a
Yeah.
little, if it was on Sundays, I had it on in the background. But I would say, yeah, and this last year, it was my brother's senior year of high school football. I met my boyfriend is the long snapper for the Rams, so there was a lot of it just kind of put right back in front of my face, and it helped me just remember how much I do love that sport. So we'll see what other opportunities become available in the future. There is the
Yeah.
Olympics in 2028, added flag football, and that's in
Oh,
LA.
cool.
So
Oh,
that's
that'd be fun.
highlighted. That's highlighted on my calendar. I actually was supposed to try out for the team this year. It was the week of Austin, actually. It was during the Austin
Oh,
50. So I
okay.
asked them, I said, hey, listen, this sounds weird, but I'm in a sport where I might be free on Friday. I'm hopefully not free on Friday, but
Yeah.
can you hold my spot? And at worst, I'll be there on Saturday. And they unfortunately said you needed to be there all 3 days. So I said, all right, we'll talk next year or maybe the year after that. But we've got some time before 2028.
Okay. So what are the tryouts for then? Are the tryouts just for like
There's a national
a
team. There's actually
okay.
like a US flag national team, women's and men. So
Okay, I didn't know that.
I'm
Okay.
I'm not as familiar with what their schedule looks like, but that's
Yeah,
going to be the feeder to what the Olympic team
the
ends
Olympic
up
team.
being. So
Okay.
at some point, I'll have to lock into
That
that.
makes sense. When you say all this stuff, like I'm thinking of the uh Federer book. It's called The Master, I think. And
Hmm.
how like when he was a kid, he played like all these different sports. So he would like I think he walked around his house with like some type of ball at his feet all the time. And he played
It shows.
soccer and he did all this stuff. And then, it um I guess I'm probably like crossing up multiple books, but like there's two approaches to like becoming a great athlete. One of them is like narrow focus, where you really focus on one sport from the time you're very young and you specialize in that specific skill. But Federer had a different approach. It sounds like you did as well, where you're like playing multiple sports and really kind of fine tuning those motor skills and the hand eye coordination and
Yeah.
the footwork and all those different things.
Yeah.
Um,
I'd be a really big proponent of that general philosophy. I mean, mine was not by design. Mine was
it
just
sounds more fun too.
it is. It really is. And tennis is easy to burn out of as well. So
Yeah,
that
for sure.
that helped, especially with my clearly obsessive personality.
So, we mentioned Austin. I chatted with Sophie there, and I think you had to run maybe for football tryouts or something. Um, uh, so I wanted to ask a couple of questions about her. So, what do you feel like Sophie's best attribute is as a doubles partner? And she's probably going to listen to this.
That's good. I can take some shots here then. No, I mean, firstly, Soph is just such a wonderful person, and that's overlooked, I feel like, a ton. And that was one of the things that I think even to this day I undervalue, or I underappreciate what a role that played in how good we were and how quickly we were that good. So I found Sophie at one of my first ITF events. She actually
Hmm.
happened to be on the court right before I was, and was something like 8-all in the tiebreak. So I watched her play 2 points. I watched one serve and I watched one forehand. And I texted Dave and I was like, hey, put on this, the last 2 points of Sophie Chang's match. And the reply was like, what are you doing, Ange? Like, you've got a match in 5 minutes. Why are we talking about this? So, I messaged her after that tournament. That was the Concord 60K. And I said, I think our games would mesh really well. Do you want to play? And we ended up winning the first ITF we played together and sort of tore through the ITF to the WTA level in under a year. So I think a lot of that would be the way we mesh, just from what a unbelievable ball striker she is. I mean, she's 6'2" with a 120-mile-an-hour serve, the biggest forehand I've maybe seen on tour when it's firing, super clean technically on both sides. And I'm sort of the net person, I suppose, that's just creating more stress for you at the net while you're stuck with a huge ball coming at you on the cross from her. So between that and between our chemistry, just knowing what a good person she was, how great she was at helping me make that adjustment from college to pros. I mean, she herself didn't go to college, but she knew the trials and tribulations and horrors, honestly, of the ITF tour, and what a good friend she was to me, what a good mentor she was to me, and how just enjoyable it was to be on court with her, because there is so much stress and pressure, and knowing that she had my back, whether I did something stupid or played awful, again, gave me freedom to not do something stupid or play awful as
Hmm.
much as, you might when you're just getting started. So I'd say, yeah, one is just what a great person she is, how much respect she has for the partner she plays with, and just how difficult the game is. And then the the pure power that comes off of the
Yeah.
Chang racket is a spectacle to see in person. And I've I guess I faced it once early on when I was still in college, but I've never had to play Sophie professionally and don't really want to. So it was really nice to have that thing that I definitely don't have on my game get to be part of my game, because it was on my side of the net.
Yeah. So it sounds like were you I guess you weren't necessarily like looking for a doubles partner at the time because you're still focusing on singles a little bit, but you saw her play and you were like, well, I like to be at the net, and if I could have her at the baseline, like that would make it pretty easy for me at the net, and I would be able to, force some errors with my movement and get
Right. I
some
mean, that was when I was
balls.
in that back injury phase. So I was all doubles.
Okay.
I was sort of,
Oh, okay.
I didn't have a clue what I was doing, but I couldn't play singles. This was when I legitimately couldn't hit ground strokes. So I went and found the best ground strokes I could to be my partner.
Oh, okay. I see.
Yeah.
Okay, that makes a ton of sense. Um, so let's dive into some of the strategies. So one of the things that I asked Sophie about in Austin was this two back that y'all play on. I think it's on your second serve. Is that right?
Mhm.
And then you serve and volley. Talk a little bit about how that started and then why that works so well for y'all.
I mean, it started as we were getting absolutely crushed in that situation in a match early on in our career and just needed to do something. I
Huh.
think actually it was
Crushed how? Like what were they doing?
we just I'm in my head as we're playing matches. I mean, I wish I could pull up the stats myself, but I'm keeping tabs as we're playing, sort of on the stats of first serve percentage, first serve points won, and I knew we were not winning any points when I was hitting second serves.
Okay.
And I there were two ways to go about it. There was the let's take some pace off then and make more first serves, but it still needed to be addressed. And I think it was Soph's idea, actually. She just told me, like, hey, I'm going to be straight with you. I'm not comfortable with the net right now. Can we just pull me back? And I couldn't hit ground strokes then. So I said, well, are you cool if I still serve and volley? And she said, go for it. And weirdly enough, it worked. So
Hmm.
we did that at the ITF level, honestly, more, and it seemed to fly. And it wasn't something I thought would fly on the WTA level. So we used it a bit more sparingly, but it on occasion does. I think sometimes just
Mhm.
changing the look to a returner to something that's completely foreign just gets in people's heads. And it's, not really a play I'm ever picking first. It's not kind of my
Sure.
general, yeah,
Second
let's call you
serve,
back,
yeah.
right, when I'm
Yeah.
serving. But it's one of those back pocket things that every so often we feel like circumstances require it. So if maybe not feeling great at net, I'm not feeling great serving, we try it, and if it messes with people, it messes with people. We keep going, and if not, you move on to the next adjustment. But it's I don't know, it's sort of just a non-traditional
Mhm.
accident that's won us a few important points
Yeah.
over the last
No,
few
I mean,
years.
it can definitely work. Uh, Elise Mertens and Chase Uway use it some on Chase second
Hmm.
serve. They'll pull Mertens back, and she's so good at defending. They both are at the baseline, so it's
Yeah,
like, okay, rip the second serve and hit through us. Like, good
yeah,
luck, you
right.
know. And they're able to. I'm sure that it's not ideal. You'd rather have a stronger second serve in Shay's case, but it works for them obviously.
Hmm.
So um, talk about the serve and volley a little bit. Is that something you've always had, or is it something you added to your game at some point? And then what are the keys to a good serve and volley?
Yeah, that for me, one came from just the lack of quality of my ground strokes, the lack of
Mhm.
confidence in them as well. So the injuries in my teen years, were during your most kind of formative, I suppose, or not formative, but solidifying years, right? That's 15, 16,
Sure.
17. Like you are finalizing your identity as a tennis player, and
Yeah.
that's just missing. And then I got plopped into D1 tennis at 18. And, the ground strokes honestly were just behind and couldn't really catch up in time. So the serve and volley started as a singles thing. It was just,
Mm.
I really don't want to hit a forehand here. I don't want to hit a backhand here. That was the only way around it. And it sounds a bit counterintuitive because the serve and volley, especially when women do it, gets seen as a super aggressive, really ballsy play, where for me it wasn't. It was asking me to stay back and hit a groundie. It was asking too much. Like I'd rather urban volley and play from there. So funny enough, it got developed in singles, and then using it in doubles again, especially in the college level, not too many girls were doing it. So
Hmm.
it's a different look. It's a high pressure look. I do have good hands and happen to be a very good volleyer. So it removed me having to be from the baseline pretty much entirely and allowed me to get right to the spot that I wanted to be immediately. So it was a funny way that it came into my game, but it wasn't like a thing I said, ooh, I want to develop the serve and volley. It just sort of
Yeah.
naturally came through.
That's interesting. I feel like most people listening, um, who are a lot of, adult club level players,
Hmm.
they're much more comfortable losing a point from the baseline than losing a point at the net. And it sounds like you're the
Hmm.
opposite.
Yeah.
So many people are pretty content to sit back and rally with somebody who they clearly can't out rally.
Hmm.
But it feels just for whatever reason more comfortable to sit back and rally and lose the point back there and lose the match back there than try to get to the net or change something up. But you had the recognition to, I'm not comfortable hitting a forehand. I'm going to get in there. And if I lose points, we'll see what happens.
Yeah. I mean, it sounds funny, but there was nothing more terrifying to me than having to hold a cross court rally with the
Mhm.
person at net threatening me, even if that person was standing in the alley not doing anything. Just the court in college to me looked like, we joke there's an ocean, and I felt like I had a river. And, as I got better and got more comfortable and we made those additions during COVID and sort of reworked some of the groundies, it got better. But the level of ball striking at the top of the women's tour is absurd. It's
Mhm.
absolutely absurd. I mean, even just seeing it from Sophie early on, I knew pretty quick, no, I'm not ever gonna hit a ball like that. I don't want to be in a cross rally with you, but I'll come in and you can hit as hard as you want with me volleying, and we'll do that all day. So it
Yeah.
yeah, it was just always way easier for me, and ended up accidentally being something proactive, even though it was honestly me just trying to hide something I didn't have.
Yeah. If somebody listening wants to develop a serve and volley, how would you get them started on that? Let's say they're an adult club player and they serve and stay back every time? How would they get going on the serve and volley?
Honestly, I'd probably take the racket out first. I've had some yips, I suppose, in my career where all of a sudden, like I had a couple weeks, I think a year ago, where I just felt like I forgot how to do it, which is craziest phenomenon for anyone who hasn't experienced the yips, but it's a real thing. And
Huh.
the way we got it back was starting from the beginning. We took the racket out of my hand. I mimicked a service motion with my hand, just did the footwork to come in, really got my split, and I would just catch it, literally catch a ball out in front with my hands again, just to get back to the tracking, to get back to the appropriate footwork, to get back to timing my split step to when my coach would make contact with the feed. And it did wonders for me actually when we removed the tennis of it and just put it back to being
Huh.
it's just a coordinated athletic movement. Um,
Yeah.
I'm unique in that sense. Like that's kind of my growing up story. I felt like I was a better athlete than I was tennis player, and for me that worked. But I think just breaking it down into the feet and the timing is way more important than necessarily the quality of the volley early on or the speed I have
Hmm.
to get into the net.
So with that, the coach is feeding from cross court, like simulating the return basically,
Yeah,
and you're
coach
you're
basically
kind of getting
standing
low and just catching the ball
pretty
with
much.
your right hand, like for a forehand volley, and your left hand for a backhand volley.
Pretty much, yeah. He'd stand back there. He's also trying to mimic the timing as well as he could as well. So
Hmm.
I'm obviously doing it on air, but I'm shadowing a serve. He's pretending to match the timing of that serve to the return. He's feeding in the return to me. I'm hitting my split step right as he's making contact with that feed or return, and then I'm just catching it right out in front of me.
Okay. Got it. What about a half volley? Like if it bounces, that's just part of the drill too. You just got to catch it on the short hop.
Same deal. Honestly, yeah, that's
Yeah.
something I would do generally just to help my half volley because if
Uh,
you can do that with your hands, you can do it with a 100 square inch racket. So
yeah.
same concept.
Yeah. Awesome. What are some other keys to playing at the net? It sounds like you've said a few times that's where you're most comfortable. Is there anything that's like you've learned over the years or that you've developed over the years at the net that um, could apply to some of the listeners' games?
Yeah, I think the biggest, I don't know, hack to the system, if you
Yeah.
will, that I've gotten and truly appreciated is how much influence I have at the net, even when I'm not touching the ball, or in
Mm.
general, how much influence I can have over a point when I'm not touching the ball. So in my positioning, in my activity, even, the Dave, my one of my coaches likes to use this line, we don't want activity without achievement, but there's certain things that I can do up there, even when the ball's not coming to me, that can have tremendous influence on the point, just in the pressure I'm creating in making that cross court or that line rally feel small, in the aggression, honestly, in my feet. I mean, if I'm a baseliner and I see someone at net whose feet are not necessarily squeaking out of being a jerk, but I see someone being super active, that sits in my head, that plants a seed
Hmm.
of doubt, and that makes the quality of my cross or maybe the decision making of my cross ball just a little bit worse. And so I think, yeah, just the awareness at all times of what direction the point is going, who has offense, what the geometry of the court is looking like, and how I, with my positioning, being that close, because when you are at the net, you are the closest person to the other side, how much stress and pressure I can create, even if the ball isn't on my strings.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a super important point for the listeners because so many people think they stink at the net because they don't have good volleys, but a lot of times you don't even have to have that good of volleys and you can
No,
still have a big influence on the match. There's I would love to like get a match tagged or charted at the club level and kind of count this, but I would guarantee that there's matches where the net player misses half of their volleys and still has an influence on the match because they don't what people are so bad at attributing, I feel like, is all the times where they poach or they apply pressure to the middle and force an error from the opponent.
Yep.
And that's one of the times you're talking about where they're moving towards the middle, they're being aggressive, forcing an error, but not giving themselves credit for that.
Mhm. That's
Maybe it's partly credit from Sophie's big forehand as well, but they work together, right? Like it's
absolutely.
if you had hugged the alley and Sophie hits the big forehand, maybe the ball comes back, but Sophie has the big forehand and then you're pressuring the middle and that combination forces the error.
Absolutely. I mean, the team I coach over at CMS in my my free time from the tour, that's one of the biggest things I remember driving home to them when we were first sort of installing what we wanted our doubles to look like was anytime I saw someone give pressure, I would stop a drill and give kudos. That was you. I know you didn't
Mhm.
touch the ball. I know you think, oh, you just shuffled. You might have even have been scared to take that volley. You won that point and you didn't do anything but get in the right spot and hold your racket up like you were ready.
Yeah.
But yeah, just it's one of those things that helped me even when I felt like I wasn't playing good tennis or I wasn't striking a ball well, was knowing a significant amount of this match is getting played without you touching the ball, and you're going to be the absolute best at that then. So
Mhm.
it's been great.
Are there some good drills or maybe situational games for playing at the net? So let's say like I'm at the net, my partner's at the baseline. A lot of people ask me, I don't know when to move or where to move, and I don't have a lot of confidence when I'm up there.
Hmm.
What are some drills or games that we can do to improve that confidence and that skill level up there? Do you have any favorites?
For myself, a lot of it is timing and honestly confidence. I mean, the margin for error timing wise at the top is so slim that if you even fall half a second or a quarter of a second off of when you're coming off your split, your entire cycle breaks down and it's hard to recover it. So, when I'm lucky enough to have just the amount of people on court where I can have someone at the baseline who's there for me and someone else on the other side, just to having them rally cross. And sometimes it's me just progressing sort of through that cycle. The word we used for it was the Reuleaux Triangle when I was explaining it to my team of when I'm
Mhm.
pressuring, when I'm covering, and when I'm protecting kind of the alley. So sometimes I'll break it down just to getting the timing right of that cycle, and then decide, all right, I'm going to go through that cycle once, and on the second ball, I'm going to go get it. But just things that isolate and break down the timing, I feel like are the most helpful for me when it comes to
Yeah.
the
Can you go through that triangle real quick? So pressuring
yeah,
is
I
when we're
know
forward.
pressuring. Yeah, so if we're picturing the try, it's hard to describe. I have a visual. Maybe you can post it on
We'll
social
link
media.
to it in the
I'll
show
share
notes.
it.
Yeah, we'll include
But
an image.
yeah, pressuring would be, right as my opponent baseliner, and we're talking about a standard one up, one back cross rally is making contact. So this is where whether I'm fully poaching or not, I'm at least going to go towards that net strap, towards the center tee to make them feel like they have to get the ball past me. The
Mhm.
minute that ball gets past me, I recognize that the next biggest threat is going to be my net opponent, or so my opponent who's at the net, because as my partner hits the ball, that's the first person who's got an opportunity to put hands on it. So
Mhm.
I'm now backing up in my triangle sort of to around that center T spot. I don't really like thinking of it that way. It's more just covering that middle hole that's become open.
Okay.
The minute I see that that ball has cleared the net person, my next threat is the baseliner. So that's where I'm making my final move in that triangle to show, all right, I'm defending my line. My line's not wide open, and whole thing resets. And obviously things change at any given moment based on,
Sure.
again, geometry, what I'm seeing, what my opponents have shown for their tendencies during the course of the match. But that's that general progression I'm running through on a basic point.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think the part at the end there is super important that there's a lot of variables and you're not always necessarily following the exact same triangle because
Yeah.
something a lot of players do at the club level is they have these same movement patterns at the
Mm.
net every time because their coach taught them this triangle and they just
Yeah.
go through the triangle. And then what that does for the baseline player is it means the baseline player on the other side of the net knows exactly where you're going to be
Yeah.
all the time. And it makes it so easy for them to avoid you. Um,
Exactly.
so so you have to create like all these variations off of this triangle, but it's kind of a general framework to start with.
Exactly. Yeah. And that was the thing. That was why even describing it, it's tough to do it just
Yeah.
speaking about it, right? Because then it does get broken down into, oh, I'm supposed to stand here, I'm supposed to stand here,
Yeah.
hit my mark. And it's not that. It's absolutely not that. It's just the framework that you're making your adjustments within, but it's very much dictated by who has the ball, who you're playing, what their strengths are, you
Mhm.
know, where the ball landed. And yeah, I even with my team, we've had to remove that sometimes. I've had to tell them, hey, forget the triangle, and they'll laugh at
Yeah.
me. What are you talking about? You spent a year teaching it to us. And I went, no, no, it's officially become a triangle to you. And that's not what it is. It was a
Yeah.
framework, but
Yeah.
it's funny how people comprehend it and implement it into their games because it sounds simple, but it's not.
Mhm. Yeah, definitely. What about serve formations? Let's talk about that a little bit. Obviously at the pro level, there's a lot of I formation run.
Yeah.
How do you think about using I versus regular? When to use each? What are some advantages and disadvantages to each?
So you probably know the stat on this. Do you know what I don't know it, what the average length of a doubles point is?
It's like 3 point. It depends on the surface, but like 3.4 or something like
Okay,
that.
so it's low. I mean, I remember hearing it in
Yeah.
singles, absurdly low as well,
Yeah,
but
singles is like 3.8 or something. It's like
yeah. So
yeah,
it's
something like
tiny.
that.
It's the amount of serve plus one that is crazy, and for how much work we do on, I got to make 100 balls past the service line. It's hilarious, but
Yeah.
um, yeah, I mean, I think it's understanding that, having the utmost respect for the fact that the majority of your match is being played within the serve and the return and the first ball makes that much more important. And you know, I will admit this on a podcast. I've never been a confident returner. I'm getting better. I've been forced to get better, but I just was there was a lot going on. I told you I didn't like to be back at the baseline. Definitely didn't want to be back there while you were serving 115 at me and someone was at net hunting me.
Hmm.
But that helped me sort of understand that then from the other side when I'm the server and recognize if I can create stress before we've even started the point, I'm absolutely going to. So, some of it I think gets determined by tendencies you're seeing in the match. If I see someone's having a hard time getting their forehand cross, I might have more or less reason to throw a formation that forces them to get there. But,
Hmm.
it's for me, it's just how much stress or what formation in this moment is going to cause you the most stress. And sometimes that becomes as simple as I'm just going to keep changing the look. I'm going to show you normal, then I'm going to show you I, then I'm going to show you Aussie just because I want your brain spinning. Sometimes it's, I know you don't have a return line. I know truly at 4 all deuce, there's no chance you're going to pull
Yeah.
this one. So I'm going to force you to pull it. And it's sort of playing with that. And I guess for me, the main thing I'm evaluating is how much stress I'm going to create in my opponent's mind with the call I
Hmm.
make on any given moment. So sometimes it's not sometimes people love it. I mean, the amount of
Yeah.
girls that'll just absolutely salivate at the chance to rip one
Down
straight
the
through
line. Yeah.
is high. But yeah, it's how much stress can I create with you just sitting there as my 6'2" Sophie Chang partner is bouncing the ball and getting ready to pop one at you.
Yeah. Yeah. I think taking away certain returns is something at every level that's super important. And it's something I've found. So when I study, like when I go and watch like some USTA players who are like 4-0 or whatever, just adult club players, it's very easy. It takes me probably 3 returns to find out, like, which one they can't hit.
Yeah.
So if I see somebody hit 3 forehand returns, I'll know, like, okay, they will not take that ball down the line, or
Yeah.
3 backhand returns, I'll immediately know. At the pro level, it takes me a little bit longer to find. Um,
Right.
I
There's
have
just less
to
holes.
yeah, I have to, like, look at the data and all this stuff, so it's a lot harder to find, but the club level, it's just so easy to find, and if people start to see that stuff, they can figure out how to use these formations to take away the cross and serve to a certain spot, or, one thing I've actually been playing with even more because at the club level, a lot of players don't have control over their serve, so they can't call, like, a body backhand serve, right? So what they can do is just call a body serve if you even have that. And then
Hmm.
just as the net player, you stare at the returner. And as soon as you see them turn to a particular side, that dictates your movement based on what you know about them. So,
Yeah.
like, I know most returners are tending to hit the return across their body. So it's like
Yeah.
if they're in the deuce court, they turn to that backhand side. I know it might come line. So I might not be as aggressive. Or if they turn to that forehand side, it's probably going cross, so I'm going to pinch hard.
Yeah.
So that's kind of another way you can do it out of, I guess, the regular formation in that case, or even um,
I love
if
that. I
you
actually
wanted to do that.
early on, before when I was still in college, Vanya King was still playing, and she would be over in Carson, and sometimes just needed a fourth body, and I would come join in and play some practice points with her. And she was the first person I had ever seen make that call where she'd go, "I'm serving body. If they take a forehand, you're going right. If they take a backhand, you're going left."
Oh,
And
interesting.
it
Okay.
was absurd to me because I'm like, wait, that ball's coming fast and I got to make that call. But it was, it was actually really great. Like just adding that extra
Hmm.
level because it gave you an extra second of something to process. Like I got to see my partner's feet and setup before I had to decide which way I was going to
Hmm.
inform my decision that much more. And it's one of those that I was tough to do at the speed that we're playing at unless you're playing with a consistent partner because there is a certain level of trust and awareness and just processing ability that you need to
Yeah.
both have in order to make sure you don't go the same way and just give up a point. But that was we used to, I think Sophie and I would call it like a contingency play, or I think we call it like the sparkle play
Yeah,
or
that makes
something. But
sense. A
yeah,
sparkle play.
sparkle play, yeah, because I'd kind of throw my hands like this, and it wasn't a
Yeah.
thing. It was like, I don't know, I'm sparkling because I'm
Might
gonna.
go left, might go right, who knows?
Yeah.
That's interesting. Okay, I hadn't heard anybody use that before. I started doing it recently just because I kind of just thought of it.
Yeah.
But that's interesting to hear that it's used at the pro level too. And I
Hmm.
guess something else that came to mind as you were saying that is like it actually kind of can force the net player, the server's partner, to focus more on the
Yeah.
returner because they're what so many of us do, and I still do it all the time, is like our tendency is just to continue to follow the ball because we're like, or at least me, like when I'm on the doubles court, sometimes I feel like I'm a dog chasing a tennis ball and I just like can't stop staring at the ball. But it forces you to focus on the returner and see as soon as they turn that particular direction, like I've got to study that because if I'm staring at the ball, I'm going to get that information a lot later. But if I'm staring at them, I'm going to get that information earlier and I can be to my spot earlier and the
Right.
volley will be a lot easier.
Right.
So that's a really good play that I think I haven't taught people a lot, but I'm going to start using that one a lot more. I like that. All right, so let's wrap up here. What are we'll go through a few rapid fire questions, but share with the listeners kind of your plans for the rest of the year. I know you're kind of recovering from injury. We talked about this a little bit before we started recording, but for people who are curious and want to follow you, talk to us about your plans for the rest of the year.
Yeah, so it's a bit up in the air just because I did suffer a pretty bad ankle injury, and it's at the moment looking like something I should be able to make a full recovery from. I mean, sports are brutal, tennis is tough, so you never know, but it so far doctors, PTs and everyone are happy with the progress. It's just sort of moving a little bit slowly, and part of that is when you have an ankle injury, the greatest, they like to say the greatest predictor of recurrence is the initial. So once you've rolled your
Mhm.
ankle once, the likelihood you're going to do it again goes up, which means the
Yeah.
more time and energy I give it in its kind of remolding process now, and the amount of attention we can give it in PT and rebuilding kind of the other structures in my ankle to help protect me, will end up paying off better in the long run if I give it more time and do more of that steady work now. So,
Mhm.
my schedule will depend on how I'm feeling there. I started jogging on the treadmill today, actually, which was a big
That's good.
jump. So, it could be something where I can come back later this year. It might be something where I'm waiting a little bit longer and reconditioning it and starting up again next year. But in the meantime, I'm going to start actually working with a lot of club level doubles players over at
Oh,
Mountain
cool.
Country Club in Brentwood, California. So I'm going to be over there a few times a week, just coaching and working with them, working with some of the junior players, and watching some football and playing some golf.
Nice. That sounds like a lot of fun.
Yeah,
I'll have to come out there and visit. That sounds cool.
for sure.
Um, so yeah, I guess one thing that came to mind when you mentioned the ankle injury and stuff is it's good that you see a lot of these doubles players playing into like their mid and late 30s. If that's something you want to do, I mean, it seems like you've got time to time to do that. So,
Yeah, exactly. I'm
all
20
right.
right now, so
What's that?
I'm only 26 right now, so there's as much time
Yeah.
as I'd like to continue grinding it out there for me.
Yeah, for sure. All right. What is your favorite tennis book?
I liked Open a lot. I liked
Yeah.
the just brutal honesty of how tough this really is being laid on the table.
hmm Yeah, that was a really good one. Favorite non-tennis book?
So this sounds really dorky. It's a
It's
basic
okay.
book. It's The Fault in Our Stars. It was my favorite book when I was younger, and I have a tattoo of Sisyphus kind of hidden, funny enough, on my bad ankle. It's the biggest like universe laughing at me thing ever. I have Sisyphus character on my ankle, pushing my ankle bone, which is the boulder, on the ankle that I injured. And that
Oh
came
no.
from reading The Fault in Our Stars when I was 13 or 14. So I'll go with that as my favorite just because it seems to have influenced my life the greatest.
Oh my gosh. And the boulder like swelled up after you rolled
Yeah.
your ankle, I'm
Actually, you
sure.
know what? I have a better one for you. The Sniper's Mind. The Sniper's Mind is going to be my favorite. That one is a kind of psychology book that a sports psychologist at USC had recommended to me and
Okay.
shaped a lot of how I approach tennis and honestly life in general.
Okay, I haven't read that one. I'll link to that in the show notes and I'll check it out. Yeah, I saw I think on your Instagram bio you majored in psychology or something or applied psychology. Is that right?
Yeah, my undergrad was cognitive science, which was mostly psychology and a few other courses in linguistics, and then my master's was in applied psychology. So I'm very that was what I would have pursued if I wasn't going to play pro
Yeah.
tennis.
Does that help your tennis game? Like, does that help you during like, I don't know,
100%.
preparing for matches and pressure moments and stuff?
Absolutely. For
Yeah.
myself and honestly on a doubles court, like this sounds funny, but I've always felt like doubles is weirdly personal in a way, just I think based on the proximity and the physicality of it just in general. I mean, I don't know if it was actually in open or if it's maybe the inner game of tennis, but there was some line about tennis being boxing at what is it, 72 feet? Is that baseline to baseline?
Yeah.
Uh, it's a shame that I don't know these numbers, but
No,
just
that sounds familiar. I don't remember which book that was either.
I'll hunt for it after we're done. But yeah, doubles just, the fact that you are so much closer to each other, the fact that, you're never aiming to injure someone, but when you're at net, your target is literally someone's body most of the time, and
hmm
balls are flying by your face, and just the amount of adrenaline and cortisol that comes through you, I think has a lot more effect sometimes or in certain situations on a doubles court than even singles because you are literally physically threatened. I mean, the
Hmm.
times when I'm at the net and I recognize that the problem isn't my hands weren't fast enough. It was a natural body response. It was a fear response because someone had a sitter on top of the net and is about to fire right at my face, is going to cause me to tense up and jump up. I've literally done hours of work in trying to train that reaction out of me. So it didn't seem like it was tennis practice, but it was straight up, can I learn how to kind of subdue that natural fear response and stay relaxed so that my hands have a better chance to go up and get the ball. So stuff like that, I dorked out about psychology. Sometimes just straight up the play calling. You know, I might know
Mhm.
someone can hit their return line, but I know in a big moment like this, if I stand on that line and get, you know, a few inches closer to the net and just make eye contact, that I'm going to increase stress. So I love actually
Mhm.
playing with those factors. And it's fun that doubles lets me do that or gives me a different canvas to paint that on than singles would have.
Okay, we're doing a round two at some point on the psychology of doubles. That
For
is a
sure.
topic we can go deep on. What is your favorite tournament?
Wimbledon. I mean, that I've had the opportunity to play that for the first time last year, and that I mean, if anything was too much for me. I when I got there the first day, I remember like my eyes kept watering, and I kept telling everyone it was allergies because of all the flowers, but it was totally just a surreal. This is a real place, and yeah, I mean, even my match, I felt like my feet were never really on the ground at any point. And it's a little bit where I
Yeah.
get mad as a professional, like, well, you know, that was my fourth Grand Slam at the time. You got to be ready to play. And I was obviously I competed as hard as I could, but I do remember that kind of knocking the wind out of me in a different way than any other slam really
Mm.
had. It just felt that sacred to be on those grounds.
Wow. How can we make doubles more popular?
I you
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 knew
you
you
have
knew
the
this was coming.
I know. I mean, you have the literal answers to it. It frustrates me so much because I think doubles actually is so entertaining.
Hmm.
It's so much quicker. Again, it's physical, it's personal, as I guess as I hot take called it there, but I just think the marketing for it needs to be better. I mean, if you look at pickleball, my best friend is a pro pickleball player, and from what I understand, doubles is actually it in pickleball. Doubles is the main thing, and singles is sort of the afterthought. So I really just think it's the promotion of it. It's, you know, instilling in the minds of younger up and coming players and newer fans how entertaining and quick and exciting it can be getting the you know the another hot take. I feel like the doubles player personalities on tour are kind of incredible. Like they
Yeah.
might be better than the singles ones, and maybe it is just because the nature of doubles is a little different and shapes our minds and our behaviors a little bit. But I just think so much more can go into promoting the doubles players, giving more TV time to doubles matches, and just it's not even increasing awareness. Everyone knows there is doubles, but actually showcasing the speed and fun of it
Hmm.
on bigger platforms would make the biggest difference.
Yeah. Totally agree. Yeah, I think I am curious about the awareness part. Because I'm gonna do this in New York. I've talked about it too long, but I want to stand outside the gates and talk to and like interview people. We'll film it and say, "Are you here to watch the singles or the doubles?"
Mm-hmm.
I think some people don't know that the doubles is happening. I really
Really,
do. I do. I think some people just go into Ash, sit into Ash all day, and like never know that there's a doubles tournament going on.
yeah, that's
Maybe I'm
crazy.
wrong. Maybe I'm
No,
wrong. I'm gonna
it'll
have
be
to
kind of
figure this out.
like the one where they asked people, "Do you think you could win a game against Novak?" Like one of those formats of just polling.
Yeah.
And so,
Yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
that'd be good.
Yeah, I got to do that this year. I definitely think it might be true of like the later stages, like in the like Friday, Saturday, Sunday, like semis and finals.
Hmm.
since they have the, women's doubles final on the same day as the men's singles final.
Right.
And I would love to interview people walking into that. Are you here to watch the men's singles or the women's doubles? And see
Hmm.
how many of them know that there's women's doubles that day. Because
Yeah.
I don't believe that it's on the ticket when they buy. I think it just says like session whatever.
Yeah.
Um, I bet they don't know that it exists or that it's happening like on that same day, like right before or after. Um,
Yeah. That's a good point.
anyways, all your points are correct though. Marketing is definitely number one. Awesome. Angela, any final requests of the audience before we hop off here?
Requests of the audience.
Requests or comments or anything?
Um, Play more doubles. Talk to your friends about doubles. Talk to your friends about doubles players.
That's right. Play more doubles, watch more doubles, all of it.
Hmm.
Awesome. Well, thanks a ton. This was a lot of fun. We'll definitely do a round two on the psychology of doubles because that fascinates me.
I love
Um,
that.
and hopefully we'll see you back out on the court here in the next several months or so.
You will.
Thanks a ton. Bye. So, after we stopped recording, Angela remembered this framework that she came up with that helps people improve their strategy on the doubles court. And I decided that we would record that. So, you're about to hear the 4-minute recording of her kind of talking through that framework with me. It's called her GAT framework. And I will let Angela describe how it works and how you can use it for your own game.
We're gonna hit it now.
If I were ever teaching a one-on-one course on doubles,
So I came up with it in college and sort of tweaked it and fine-tuned it as I kept playing, but the the ABCs of it is GAT. It's geometry, ability, tendency. So for me, when I'm playing any given point, when I'm watching any given shot, I'm evaluating on those three filters, I suppose. So geometry being the first one is all right, if I pull my opponent wide with a serve, this one is universal. Geometry dictates they're going to have a little bit more angle on the cross, they're going to have a little bit less on the line. That already tells me one part of the court I don't need to worry about. Then I step to the next level, which is ability. So let's say I'm playing someone who's got a one-handed backhand, and I know if I have a ball up on their shoulder, they're going to have a harder time pulling that inside in. Boom,
mhm.
I've filtered to half the court now. I have an even better idea of where I need to be. And then once I filter to that, it's tendency. So then it's all right, over the course of this match, how many times have I actually seen so and so hit this ball or lob this return? And if I can filter out those three levels, generally I can get a pretty damn good idea of what ball is coming to me. And if
Mhm.
I can do that with every single ball being hit to me over the course of a match, it does over time. I mean, I feel like if I was AI, it would be perfect, but I'm able to filter so much through that I start predicting what my opponent is doing, not because I have some incredible intuition, but because I have so much data that I'm collecting and processing through literally every single point that I know what's happening before it happens. And
Mm.
again, that's the quirkiness. I said the strategy of doubles I love getting into, but for me, becoming a true double specialist, mastering doubles in general comes down to that. If you have full mastery in my head of geometry, you're a doubles player because that one is a universal rule. If you
Mhm.
can start getting good enough to where you're processing the ability and the tendency every single shot, now we're talking professional level play
Yeah.
or at IQ.
Yeah. Yeah. And the percentages here are so important too, right? Uh, like Federer just did a speech at
Yeah.
some graduation thing, and he talked about how he won 80% of his matches, but only 54% of his points. And
Yeah.
it's like you can get this GAT thing right every single time, and it might get you from 50% to like 55% of the points.
Yep.
But that is a huge jump.
It's
5% of
perfect.
points. It's an enormous jump, even though
Yeah.
it doesn't seem like a lot. Um, because yeah, I mean, because my tendency is to pull my backhand across my body, like I can still hit the line one. I'm just not as good at it. So like
Right.
you're making me hit the thing that's not my tendency, which is going to be lower percentage, and it just all kind of adds up.
Exactly.
But if you trust that process, it seems like that makes tons of sense that it'll kind of tilt the odds in your favor just a little bit.
Right, and that's all you need. You don't really need to win 70%. I mean, I'm generally, when I'm making these calls, I recognize there is inherently a risk reward in every decision I make. I'm
Hmm.
honestly looking for 51. If I win
Yeah,
50, tennis is weird, you can lose, and I've lost a few matches having won more points, but
yeah,
generally speaking, I mean, same thing I coach to my players when they get frustrated. I'm missing every poach. I'm like, I promise in 10, you'll make 6. You're good
yeah,
enough. We're the number one team in the country for a reason. You'll make 6. It's
yeah.
okay if you miss 4. Um, but yeah, I mean, doubles typically I feel like just falls in the way of the person that's understanding and managing that best. And when you understand you are allowed to miss, as long as you just tip the scale ever so slightly, you play that much more freely, and things tend to go your way.
Yeah, absolutely. Very well said. If you want to become a smarter doubles player and start winning more matches, then join the Tennis Tribe Doubles Strategy newsletter. Every single Thursday, I'll send you a new doubles tip or tactic that you can use in your very next match. And when you join, you're going to get a free guide on how to play with more confidence and start dominating at the net in doubles. My name's Will. I'm the founder of the Tennis Tribe, and over the last 5 years, I've worked with players at every level of the game, from USTA 3.0 players all the way to Division I college programs, as well as some of the top 10 doubles players in the world. And on Thursdays, with this strategy newsletter, I share that knowledge and advice that I've gained over the years with you. So to sign up, you can go to thetennistribe.com. And again, you'll get that free net play guide when you join.